Hello, good morning. This is Coffee coming to you from No Static Radio with the Black Anthropy Show, where we highlight nonprofit organizations, individuals, for profit businesses, and entrepreneurs who are impacting the community by providing knowledge, resources, opportunities, and inspiration. This morning on the show, we have Legal Works. Legal Works is a nonprofit organization that provides low cost, no cost uh, services to help individuals have their records expunged and or sealed. And this morning from Legal Works, we have Mr. Isaiah Pinckney. He is associate attorney. And good morning, Isaiah. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for having me. Let's start out by talking about what Legal Works does. Sure. So Legal Works, as you said, is a nonprofit. We specialize in record sealing, expungements. We also do clear cases or warrants. Help with some driving privileges, restoring some driving privileges, redundant, and do simple wills as well. We also get into somewhat of some debt negotiation, but that is a case by case basis. And so what was that? You said simple wills, and what else was that? Debt negotiation. Debt negotiation. But that's a little bit. Okay, let's do this. So let's go down one by one because people may think that they, have something that can be expunged or sealed. And one thing I like to do is help, people understand technical terms because this is, especially law. It's a very litigious, a very legalistic, term-driven profession. And, I think it's important for people to understand what their situation is. And when they come to you all, you know, a person's individual situation is not the only thing on you all's mind. But at the same time, that person may be expecting that. So talk about what is expungement? What does that mean? So what it means, you file an application with the court to seal or expunge your record. Sealing, how I explain it is, when you seal a record, the court gets rid of all of its records, all the public records, and then sends it out to different agencies, your arrest record, the Attorney General. Expungement really means to destroy or just really delete it. That actually is a new thing as of April 6th. April 6th changed the law where you can expunge adult records. Previously, it was only juvenile records. So now you can expunge a record. That means only, I think, 3 entities can see it. I believe that's the state auditor, the Department of Education, and the Sheriff's Department if you're applying to be a police officer. Okay. And was it, is it like educational institutions, or if you're gonna be applying for a job or something dealing with children, are those something that it won't be expunged or sealed from those type of organizations or companies being able to see your, record? If it's sealed, health organizations and children should be able to still see it, but it will say sealed record. The expunge, we have not seen what that actually looks like yet because it just changed. Okay. So I want to hold off on answering that because I don't want to say something that's not really true. Okay. And so a big part of that though is before, if you know you're gonna, if someone comes to Legal Works for assistance and they want something expunged or sealed from their record, and they plan on applying for a job or they're a bank loan or something like that, even with this new process, they still should make sure that their record has been expunged and not just take for granted that it is off of there. How can should they communicate with you all, with Legal Works? Should they communicate with the government? Is there going to be a website? Or how can I follow up to make sure so that before I go, because if I go and it's not going to be expunged until Friday, and then a background check is done on me. So what advice would you give individuals before taking that next step? Well, I would usually when you get a seal, I shouldn't say usually, you will get a order from the court saying this record is expunged or sealed. That's something you should keep. Oh, okay. That will be your only copy you can really
have because, again, it's supposed to be deleted. So you have that copy, and then when you apply to job, really by law, you can say I don't have a record because it's supposed to restore your rights back. So if a job comes back and says, hey, we saw this record, your proof is, look, this was sealed, and that's what you would need to carry. Unfortunately, it's different entities that actually need to seal it. So again, it goes to the court, attorney general, the sheriff's office, the police department that issued the arrest, the governor's office, and they all have their own individual processes. So the best way to ensure that, hey, someone knows, an employer knows that this is sealed, is to have that on you. Again, you can answer that saying I don't have a record once it's sealed, but you have to ensure that it's sealed.
What will be expunged?
I'm sorry.
What type of crimes or what type of things on a person's record are eligible to be expunged?
All misdemeanors, even offenses of violence, can be sealed now, expunged now. Previously, we were able to 6 offenses of violence, and that's listed under, I'll say a code, I believe it's 2909.01, I believe, 2901.09. But that defines what an offense of violence is. So some things are kind of self-explanatory. For example, an assault would be an offense of violence, but something like escape is an offense of violence, which someone may or may not think that is or isn't. There's also menacing and burglary, and certain things that you would know would murder, right? Those things. Felony offensive violence cannot be expunged.
What are those?
Felony offensive violences.
Okay.
So, again, it's things you think of: murder, rape, I believe strangulation is something that was added. Robbery. I don't want to rattle off the whole.
Right.
But things of that nature. Now that it's so expansive, before it used to be a limit on what you could seal. And what that meant before, if you had, say, there's different degrees of felonies. I'm kind of going into some other terms, but before, if you had a felony of the 3rd degree, you only can have 1 other felony on your record. And if you exceeded that number, then you can seal your whole record. Now, it's by case analysis. So if you have a felony of the 3rd degree, that doesn't no longer bars you from getting sealed. You can seal everything. You have to look at each case to see, okay, is this an eligible offense conviction or not? So the analysis is a wider net, which is great. And now a lot more records are being sealed. And they're probably seeing that in the courts now. Probation department is the one who does the background checks.
Okay, and so what's the time frame? So how far do you go back to say what can be expunged?
There is, how old the case can be. I have sealed cases from the 80s or even 79.
And then how recent? 30 days ago?
No, so you have to wait a year until you found discharge. Unless it's a minor misdemeanor, you can wait 6 months.
And these do not have to be offenses where you were incarcerated. We have a call here. So, Isaiah, I knew this was going to happen.
Okay.
This is why I like having, organizations such as yours on. Hello, caller. You're on with the BlackAnthology show. Please tell us what your question is.
Yes, good morning. Well, first of all, I just want to commend you on your show. Your show is great. Yours and that show, The Body Talk. I'm a regular listener to your station, and those are, in my opinion, far and away the best 2 shows on your network. So
Thank you.
Kudos to you and your topics that you have weekly. I wanted to ask your guest this question, and I know his field of expertise is expungement, but the hot news story right now is, of course, the indictment that was handed down by the DOJ to former President Donald Trump, special prosecutor Jack Smith. There's been a question that's asked, and I hear a lot, and perhaps you're able to answer this question. The question I hear a lot is, why is it going to take so long for all of this to come to trial? They said some have projected 6 to 9 months. I've heard as much as a year from now before a trial can be held. Why is it such a long time between indictment and trial?
I thank you for the question. Thank you for obviously listening to the show. The best way I can answer it is just, so once an indictment happens, each attorney has to do something called discovery. Discovery is literally, it sounds like you discover the facts of the case, gather information, go through it. That can take months depending on what the case is. So sometimes with the indictment, it's the prosecutor has the information they gathered and then said, okay, we're going to indict you now. His attorneys have to look at everything the prosecutor has, go through that same information, go through that same process. So it's just going to take some time. And then there's also pre-trial negotiations. So whether or not President Trump wants to take a plea deal and that negotiate between both the parties. So it can take anywhere, yes, from, like you said, 9 months to a year, just because of the negotiating process. Also, what's on the judge's docket.
Okay, thank you. That's what I figured, but I thought I would just put it out there in the atmosphere so those that are listening that might be wondering that they got the answer to their question, and I appreciate it. And once again, Coffee, appreciate you and all the excellent work you do there on your show.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your question. Okay, Isaiah, so that brings, we'll bring it back to what you actually do, that question that he just asked. Because again, I would imagine you get some people who come in and they're anxious.
Of course.
And so what could be their expectation for when will this be expunged? They probably want it expunged by next Friday. Talk about what the process is and the length of time that you can kind of expect to get your record expunged.
Sure, we usually say 10 to 12 weeks. So how that works is once the application is filed, the judge orders something called an expungement investigation report. That report looks at whether you have any pending criminal cases, any warrants, or other convictions that you have on your record. So if you have an open warrant, whether it be for traffic or an arrest warrant in a criminal case, you can't sue while you have an active warrant. So that will stop the process, but that takes about a month, give or take. After that month is over, the report is then delivered to the judge, and then that copy is given to the prosecutor, who then has to examine it and say whether they object to the record seal or they don't oppose it at all. That's another 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month, depending on the workload, because everyone has a lot of cases. So sometimes the process just takes longer just by the paperwork. So that's gets you about to 8 months. So that's why we say 10 to 12 weeks, because based on that time frame, you can look at 10 weeks and then you get a hearing. A lot of courts, if there's no objection from the prosecutor, may wait the hearing. But again, that's on the court and depending on where your court is and your records are.
And then talk about that, because where's your office at, and then where area does your office represent people in?
So we have several offices actually. If you'll allow me, I can list them.
Oh, sure.
So today we're at the Women's Recovery Center from 1 to 4. I believe that's on Storer Avenue between 62nd and 63rd Street. We're also in Glenville Library, Cleveland Public Library branch, from 12 to 3:30 today. We have a partnership with them where we are located in 3 of the library locations. Obviously, Glenville is one of them. That's 120th and St. Clair. On Tuesdays, we're at University Settlement on Meade Avenue in Slavic Village from 1 to 4, and at the Fulton Library from 12 to 3:30. Wednesdays, we're at the Mount Pleasant branch on 140th and Kingsman from 12 to 3:30. And on Thursdays and Saturdays, Thursday from 1 to 4 at the Famicos Foundation at Ansel and Superior. It's the old school, I was told. I'm not from Cleveland, so sometimes I don't remember what was what. But I believe it was called Notre Dame, or it's called Notre Dame Apartments now. And we're there from, I said Thursdays 1 to 4 and Saturdays from 10 to 1.
Okay, and so, but what geographical areas do you, that's geographical, but what counties? Because you're beyond Cuyahoga County.
That is true, sorry. We're Cuyahoga and the adjacent county, which is Lorraine, Portage, Summit, Geauga, and Lake Medina, I think is the last one I missed. And if a client does have something outside of those adjacent counties, we will help them with what we call a pro se motion. Maybe we will help them fill out the paperwork, and then it will be on the client to file it. We won't be the attorney of record, but we were more than happy to help them fill out that paperwork.
Okay, and so how do people find out about Legal Works to even know there's an organization that will assist me with getting my record expunged?
Well, this radio show.
Thank you.
We have our website, legalworksneo.org. We also partner with the Cleveland Clerk of Courts in the neighborhood clinics. We are one of the legal providers there once a month. So we have some upcoming clinics that you can reach out. June 22nd is the next one at Mega Church.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where exactly. I believe it's on Scranton Road, but I don't remember the exact address. We also have clinics throughout. So April we had about 5 or 6. May we had 2. We're gonna have I think 1 this month and then 2 the next month in July. So now we have these office locations. We're in the different communities. So we're not in Cleveland. So and then we partner with different entities. So.
Okay. Again, this is the BlackAnthology radio show. You're listening to Coffee with her guest today, Legal Works, a nonprofit organization in Northeast Ohio whose mission is to provide free and low-cost legal services to clear past criminal records and other legal issues for those in Cuyahoga and adjacent counties. And so, again, one thing that you talked about is some of the criminal uh, uh, issues or that are on an individual's record. You also said that you all would help with like wills or something like that. And I know that that becomes a very big issue because if a person dies without a will, then they have to go to probate. So talk about why Legal Works decided to start offering that service because that becomes a very complicated process for family members to go through. Talk about the assistance that Legal Works provide for when someone passes without a will.
Yeah, I started smiling because the story that my boss has when he started wills. When he started for Legal Works, we still have a partnership with Famigos, but in that building is senior housing. Mm-hmm. So he had a client come down one day. He would tell clients before, we don't do wills, we don't do wills. And this client came and said, I'm not leaving until you do my will. So he put one together, figured it out, put one together, and that's the service we offer. That's how that started. But yes, for that reason, what you said, there are families, sometimes they come to us after the fact, hey, grandma passed, left the house to us, but we can't find her will, or we have no idea, or here's the will, but that person's no longer here, so what do we do? So that's why we offer that service. Okay, before that happens, hey, let's look at some different avenues so that way when that time does come, you don't have to face, like you said, probate and I guess the rigmarole, as you call it.
And talk about just, however much you want, about that difference when you have a will versus if you have to go to probate. Because you've got to if you have a will, then what the process is, if someone dies, you have your will, you can go to the bank, you can go to the different places where the individual, the family member or the loved one had assets. But if you don't, you've got to go get death certificate, you've got to get proof that you're related to them. Can you talk about that a little bit? Why it is essential to try to have some kind of will in place?
So when you have a will, you just, basically it's instructions for probate. Without the will, there's no instructions. So you have a will that says grandma passes to X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z. They get the house, the necklace, whichever items that person who died wants to pass on. Again, when you go to probate without that, now probate has to decide who gets what, where does it go, what are the assets, what's the estate. So when you go to probate is going to look at, was there a house, how much was this property, diamond earring that costs this. Then you have to do something called a bond to secure the asset.
Oh, I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
So probate is a process in the matter of death, no matter what, whether you have a will or not.
Right.
Correct. Okay. So what happens when the family doesn't go through probate, like things aren't honored correctly in the will, like say grandma passes away and leaves, her son the house and her grandkids her assets, like how does that work and what happens when those wishes in the will aren't honored?
Well, parties have a right to contest what was going on. So usually if there's no will, there's something you can apply to be the administrator of the estate. And then you list, like you said, okay, maybe someone's finding the will, you list the assets, or maybe something was missing from the will that you want to add on to it. That's when the administrator comes in. So you apply to be an administrator. Probate will say, okay, you're now the administrator of the estate, so now it's your job to say what goes where, who gets what, how it's distributed. When you probate the will, again, the will is supposed to be the instructions. When someone goes against that thing, that's a litigation issue.
Say, okay.
No, this was what the will is. We already probated the will. We already know what the instructions were. So we need to follow that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and I think that that's very important because I think people are not really certain of what happens when someone passes. And, you start having family members trying to get certain assets, but they need proof, don't they, that they were related to the individual? Because when you go to probate court, like you're saying, because of the challenges, the wills, that's one thing with the challenge. Can you talk about some of the differences to some extent in the outcome that you can get when you have a will? Because they're trying to some extent let the individual's wishes be honored. But then they're also not trying to let the individual, regulate from the grave, so to speak. And they don't want them too much to be saying, but just talk about how that kind of works with what outcome are you likely to get if you contest a will when you go a will versus you go to probate and there was no will.
Well, when you try to contest the will, you're basically saying the will. And let me just say this: Legal Works doesn't litigate probate issues. We just kind of do the simple will, and then the probate issues kind of we would refer out.
But this is important because people should want to get some kind of will, some document in place to kind of minimize that friction that may arise after you pass, and that's what I'm really trying to get to. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure the listeners are saying I could just any litigation. We may not be able to help with everything, but definitely when you have the will, it cuts out whether or not, for instance, son and daughter are arguing about mom's will. Mom left son more than daughter. Daughter's saying mom would never do this, right? So how you contest the will is there's certain things you could say. She wasn't of sound mind when she made the will. There's some fraud going on. That's what there has to be, and that's what the person would have to do to contest it, and that's kind of the bar they would have to reach. When there isn't a will, there's none of the bar. It's just okay. Mom has house, $100,000 in bank account, $5,000 necklace. Who gets what? Son says, mom left me the necklace because she said she likes my wife. Daughter's like, I want the necklace. So now it turns into probate deciding what's going to happen versus the will said X, Y, and Z. And probate's going to honor the will because if the will, they find that the will is valid, then there's nothing to argue. Especially when you contest it. When you contest and you lose, then the instructions are still there. But without the instructions, then it turns into the argument.
Okay. Again, you listen to the BlackAnthology radio show. Thank you so much for tuning in, listening in. Today we have our guest, Isaiah Pinckney with Legal Works, a nonprofit organization in Northeast Ohio that provides assistance with expungement and sealing of past criminal records or criminal records, and providing some minimal assistance with will preparation. Uh, One thing we want to talk about, Isaiah, is I think that's very important. You all are a nonprofit organization, and you all are attorneys. So talk about the free and low cost services, because people tend to think that, well, I'm, low cost, and it's a difference with a fee for service versus no fee for service. And there are certain parts of the legal process that the individual would need to pay for. Can you talk about your service fees?
Sure. So for expungements, we have a fee structure for Cuyahoga County, Common Pleas Court, and Cleveland. We charge $50 per motion. That's our legal fee. The court charges a filing fee. Now it's supposed to be a minimum of $50, but each court does vary. I don't know after the law that went down a little bit, but we saw anywhere from the 50 to 75 to 100, 150 for a filing fee. But that's our fee for basically inside the Justice Center. Outside the Justice Center in the municipal courts, we charge $100 per motion. And outside the adjacent counties is $200. That's pretty much our fee structure. That doesn't change. In terms of some of the free stuff, we are partners with the Ohio Governor's Expedited Pardon Project. I'm sorry I mentioned this before. We just help individuals, if they can't get a seal, to then apply for that pardon. That does take longer. If I may speak about that briefly, it takes about a year to do, but when you can't get a seal or expungement, that is the other route that we also offer. Another thing we offer is help with a certificate of qualification for employment, CQE. Basically, that's literally telling an employer, hey, I don't have this record, I can't seal it, I can't get a pardon, but I'm eligible for employment. And another thing we do also is relief from disability. What was the other things? And no, that was it for the fee structure. In terms of the driving, because I know I mentioned driving privileges, that fee kind of is the same as if you get a record seal. So depending on which court you want to get your driving privileges in, it'll be that same fee.
Okay. Now, you said another technical term.
Okay.
Motion.
Oh.
Right. So talk about what a motion is. This may be something that individuals don't need to know per se. But again, this is one of that's almost like the first step in the second step in the process, because you got to get the facts, and then you got to proceed to make the court aware that we have this. We wish to make this request before the court.
Well, you just explained it. But yeah, essentially that's what the motion will be, or the application to seal, is we're letting the court know that our client wants to apply to get their expungement or seal, and then that starts the process. So for us to draft it, it's the legal fee to draft, file it, and then we the attorney of record. So we go file it. Any problems, we address it, such as if they say, hey, you stole a car from us, or hey, there's a warrant. We help try to get that resolved, so that way you just get the record sealed. So from start to finish.
Okay. Now let's do this. We talked about expungement. We talked about seal. You just brought up another one, the pardon. What qualifies for the pardon?
So that's again through the Governor DeWine's program. So what qualifies is, well, certain offenses that you can't have, kind of similar to record seal, the murder, rape, kidnapping, but also domestic violence. Domestic violence, as we know, is something that really can't be sealed, even on both ends, pardon and seal. But the process is, what they're looking for is seeing you rehabilitated.
Okay.
I know that's a very kind of vague, what does that actually mean? Some of the things they look for is kind of your community service. What have you done in the community since the conviction? But you have to be no convictions for 10 years. So that's kind of If it was 5 years ago, I'm sorry, we really can't do anything. But if it's 10 years, because we get some clients and their grandparents now, cases back in like '83, they're obviously not the same person. They're nowhere near who they were before, and they're just on a different path, different walk of life.
Right.
So just showing that story, that helps with the partner project.
Now, generally, when I hear about pardons, I'm generally hearing about someone in prison who's requesting a pardon. How often do people who are not in prison, and like you say, when they were younger, teenager, 20s, whatever the case may be, how often do they come in and are they aware again that they can request a pardon, if not an expungement? Why would I request either one? And do you all help me to understand that if I come in and say, well, I want an expungement? If I want an expungement, is that because I am in a current situation where I may want employment or get bank financing or something like that? Whereas a pardon is, why would I choose one or the other?
So most of our clients come in for expungement, not 100%.
Okay.
It's when we realize we can't do the seal.
Okay.
We're like, okay, let's try a pardon, because the seal expungement is faster. So
okay.
And most of our clients want employment, want gainful employment. This is the reason why they want to start a business, but they know this record is going to impede on the loans. As you said, the bank financials, housing is another issue. So the need is more immediate. But once I look and say, okay, we can't do this, but let's see if we can do a pardon. At first I tell them, like, it's going to take a year, so understand this is not overnight. It's, seal already took some weeks. This is going to take some time. But it is strong. As the governor pardoning you for everything, and he seals everything if you get an unconditional pardon from him. Okay. So it works out where it's just a stronger, I guess, instrument.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so again, these are all things that it sounds to me that before you ever go to Legal Works, maybe not before you go to the website, but before you ever contact someone at Legal Works, you need to make sure that you're not engaged in any conduct that will cause something to be on your record. You want to make sure that what that time frame is going to be, and so that again you're not kind of jumping the gun trying to get something. Because what happens if you get something expunged or sealed, and then you are charged or indicted or convicted of another offense after that? How does that affect the expungement? Have you all seen anything like that?
I haven't personally seen that. Usually if someone wants something sealed, especially back when the laws were a little more restrictive, they weren't committing any more offenses after the fact.
Okay.
I haven't seen that. And let me address also the anxiousness. We understand everyone's anxious.
Yes.
I get phone calls from clients. I can tell them 10 to 12 weeks, they'll call me in 2. That's just, when you have in your mind you want to do something, we completely get it. Yeah. You get it. You're just going to want to get it done. So,
right.
Yeah, you can come prepared, but just come. Okay. We'll take care of you. We're not worried about
it. Okay. So let's talk about this a little bit. One big thing that it does is it helps not only get your driving privileges back or your license back, but it restores your driving privileges. Why is that important? An important part of what Legal Works does with the expungement. Take it that next step, because you all could just stop and say, well, it's expunged. But you all take it that next step and say, now we also want to help restore your driving privileges. How do you all help the individuals with that part of it?
Well, someone has to come. So sometimes they're not related. A lot of times, a client will come to us and say, look, I just want a license. I don't care about this. I just need to be able to drive to get to work.
Right.
So that's usually the focus. And then what we'll do is we'll look the BAV profile. Anyone can do this. You can do this without actually having a profile at all. It's just a guest registration. You go on BAV's website, you type in either your license, I think it's the last initial, last word, associate date of birth, and it'll show every traffic warrant you have, also your reinstatement requirements. Sometimes it could be as simple as you have a warrant in East Cleveland, you got to pay East Cleveland the amount that East Cleveland wants, and then it's resolved. So there are a lot of times a client will come in and say, I want my license back because I have this warrant. I'll take a look, say, if you just go and pay it, you'll be fine. And you just pay the receiving fee. And sometimes they don't even need us, which is also part of the knowledge piece, right? What you don't know, you can't do. So once we give them that information, like, oh wait, I only owe this, and I just pay to do that, okay, then it's done. So that part, most times for privilege, again, it doesn't really relate all the time to expungement. A lot of times, again, it's just, I live in Ohio, I need to drive legally. I can't keep not taking the bus because I didn't resolve this.
Okay. Yeah. So they may not realize that they can go on there themselves and get this resolved. So then, in what situations would an individual really need Legal Works to step in and assist them in restoring their driving privileges?
Well, if there's an offense where you have a suspension and the suspension you can't lift, so you need to apply for driving privileges because you need to go to work, you got to pick up the kids, you got to get groceries. So apply for privileges so you can have a certain window to do all those activities. Otherwise, you're driving. I hate to say about driving while suspended legally. So that's when we will step in and help out. But we also, I forgot to mention, and I should mention, in the neighborhood clinics help out with that as well. So the Cleveland Court has their program where they're connected with all the courts within Tioga County except for, I believe, Lakewood and the mayor's courts. And they will help clear your warrants as well. They just set up a court date so you can address the issue. But it's just a tremendous help because, as we know, traffic here, I'm from New York, so traffic in New York is not, I realize in Cleveland it's a lot more, well, I'm not going to talk about it, but anyway, so it helps you get a new case, so that way you get lift a warrant and then you can resolve the case, and that way you won't have any more warrants on your record. Obviously you have to resolve the case, but that's a tremendous help as well.
Okay.
So those are the two things. If you have too many, you need to resolve like in a batch, or if you need to get your driving privileges, we'll try to help you.
And that's what I was going to ask next is, because if you have X number of driving offenses and the fees and stuff associated with that, is it BMV or DMV? It's BMV. Do they normally allow some kind of payment arrangement so you can pay that off over time?
BMV does. A lot of courts do. Not every court does. Because sometimes the BMV needs a court order release for your warrant before they're able to do anything on their end. So that's kind of what we look up to see where you need to go to release the warrant, so that way you can go to BMV and pay. And again, BMV has some payment plan or amnesty plan where they'll work with you on payment.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. I don't think I knew that before. Another service you all provide assistance with is child support. Talk about the assistance that, again, you listen to the BlackAnthology radio show, listen up, we're about to get into child support assistance that Legal Works provides. Isaiah Pinckney with Legal Works is associate attorney. Isaiah, please tell us about the assistance that is needed and or requested through Legal Works for child support.
So child support, yeah, that also can be an offense if you get charged with non-support, but we do help in terms of trying to arrange, I believe there's arrears. Child support is not my area, so excuse me if I sound a little ignorant on the subject, but we try to set up so where you can make a plan, get back on track, so that way you're not facing, thousands of dollars you owe, because that happens. And situations change, and you need a new arrangement. So I believe we give advice on how to do that. We're also trying to work on expanding in terms of getting just some more help help in that area. We do have one attorney right now who's phenomenal, but it looks like the need is great, so we may need to build on that a little bit.
And so again, what type of issues are you all seeing that people need child support with? And let's not make this assumption that it's all guys or males, but talk about these nuances with child support that come up too.
I'm not as familiar with the nuances of child support. So just to be honest with you.
Okay.
But, what I'll say is what I've seen is, so we partner with something called Passages, this program who deals with reentry and fatherhood initiatives. One of the issues I've seen for them is, hey, either one, I'm not working right now, I have this child support, but they're saying I owe, and I can't get a job because I have this on the record. So how can I possibly get child support if I can't get a job? Someone help me out. So that's part of one of the issues I've seen is I want to help, I want to do the right thing, but I can't because I can't get a job because they're telling me I'm not doing those things.
Okay.
Which also happens a lot of stuff.
Okay. And then again, talk about that process, what you all do on that individual's behalf going through the court system.
I'm trying to remember what our attorney does.
Okay.
I do apologize. But my understanding is, her name is Michelle Tippett. She helps, she will sit down with the individual, help them go through the paperwork, what they need to file. I'm not 100% sure if she also refers out to something called Scranton Legal Clinic, I believe, that also deals with that. I'm just not 100% sure.
Okay. Okay. No problem. But the point is, if you have child support related issues and concerns and questions, Legal Works, a nonprofit organization, can provide assistance. Now, since I brought this, we're kind of at this point, that is another thing I want you to talk about is your background. Why, how did you get where you want to do this work for Legal Works? Talk about the law school you graduated from. And I think that that's important because the opportunities that you could have had, but you chose to go work for Legal Works. So talk about your background some as an attorney.
Yeah, I guess I'll start from the beginning. I'm originally from New York City. I came here to go to Case. That's where I graduated from. So in my third year of law school, that summer going into it, it was the pandemic. That was 2020. I didn't have a job. I looked on our school website, saw Legal Works, saw the mission, that this looks like this would be a good fit. I was also doing a reentry clinic for my 3L. You had to do like a legal clinic, so I was already going to be in the reentry clinic there. So I was like, okay, well, let me see what it's like in actual practice. So I do an interview, met James, tell you the story briefly. How he started Legal Works. He told me James Levin has been a criminal defense attorney for like 40 years. So he had a big case where he had 26 witnesses, all ready to go. They had trial, they don't show up. He doesn't know why. So he goes to where he knows where most of these individuals are, says, what happened? Well, I have a warrant here for this traffic ticket, I have a warrant there, I have a warrant here. So
wow.
He goes and is like, this is easy, I can do this. Helps clears the warrants, realizing there's a need. That's how he partnered with Fumiko's to start clearing warrants. That's how this whole started. So when he was telling me the story, New York, you don't get traffic warrants. You just, there's a traffic ticket, you go pay it, life goes on. I didn't know people were getting arrested here on traffic tickets, how serious it is here in Cleveland. So that was part of, like, wait, I didn't know this was a thing, because I'm not from here.
Mm-hmm.
So, excuse me. So that's part of what I fell in love with. I realized there's an actual need that I can really help, like, I guess, be in the trenches.
Right.
And help out. Then I found out about records. I didn't know anything about that. Learned that both in the clinic and working for this event, just realizing how many people need this and trying to find a job, not realizing that just this one case can stop your the growth.
Right.
I just thought it was kind of insane.
Right.
And this process should not be this way. But here we are, the criminal system is what it is. So I kind of just fell in love with the fact that we're helping people daily. And when I was just a law clerk, when I wasn't even an attorney yet, just talking to them, people really are not listened to.
Right.
So when you sit and just listen, the difference in the demeanor you see almost immediately. So that's kind of what started me falling in love with this. And when James said, "Hey, if I give you an offer, would you take it?" I said yes. And that's how I just started now on the training here. But it was in my third year of law school.
Okay. Yeah. And so, about what percent of people that Legal Works see, clients that Legal Works see, are African American males?
Males?
African Americans.
Oh, I was gonna say 95%, maybe, but that's the way I see it. But he said males. I was like maybe males, maybe 45. We actually there's more women we have than males. I think not our last numbers I saw.
Okay. Yeah, and I just asked that because again, I think like with a lot of health issues being in the news now, I think that that's the same experience that African Americans are starting to see when they have Black nurses, Black doctors, Black doulas that are attending to them, advocating on their behalf. It makes them more inclined to go and seek these services out, and versus when, like you said, you can tell in the demeanor, people don't feel like they're being heard, that they're taken seriously, and that something is actually they're going to get results from actually being there. Then people, that's sort of how they, become disengaged. And like you say, the mission of Legal Works is to help restore people's rights because these impediments are causing people to be disconnected from the community. And so now, one thing that I don't think a lot of people understand is, just like I just asked you about the child support. Most people think an attorney knows every single thing, right? So I would appreciate that you were honest in saying, I don't really do that. Tippins does that. And so that's also something important because I think that, sometimes people, they may see you and they say, well, help me with this, this, or this, and they don't really understand that you're serious when you say, I can't really help you with child support because the best service you're going to get is going to the person who specializes in that. Can you talk about that a little bit and talk about like the breadth of attorneys that you all have at Legal Works?
Yeah, so my 7 days of men's are on staff. We're the staff attorneys.
What does a staff attorney mean?
So we're hired by the organization.
Okay.
There are other attorneys that are counsel, basically they're independent contracted.
Right.
Through the organization. So we have, I mentioned Michelle Tibbetts, Nathan Genovese is another one. He does traffic outside of that. Tibbetts does child support. James does criminal defense as his sole practice, and I also help him with that. So that's kind of where the specialty lies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I want to make sure I don't lose track of your question.
Oh, it was just what's the difference, the different legal services that you all provide and that it requires attorneys that specialize and focus in certain areas.
Right, so what we're hoping to expand to is we get asked a lot about housing, so we don't specialize in housing. And there is legal aid that does housing. Legal aid does a lot of different things, and sometimes we do get confused with them. And not bashing legal aid at all. They're a tremendous organization, but there's some times where if legal aid can't help, sometimes someone comes to us to see if we can do those housing issues. And we really don't specialize, at least not yet. So that's one of the hopes that we'll expand into that area sooner than later.
Yeah, I was listening to a program last week, and they're looking at, there's just such a need for health services and legal services. And those are two topics that I want to just have as a recurring theme on the BlackAnthology show. Because I think people get detached from it, disengaged, uninterested, because when you hear about it in a broader perspective or a broader context on national news or something, it's make it sound so convoluted and so complex. Whereas what's missing is when you meet with an attorney, they're actually dealing with your situation. And the most important thing that you have to remember is trust the attorney when if they don't want to take your case or are unable to take your case, that is the best thing for you because you need to get yourself to the attorney that is best able to represent you. Just like with health services, we have doulas that are assisting when you go in and asking these questions. If they look at your face and see that you may not understand what the doctor is saying, they're speaking up for you. And that's sort of what you want with your attorney is to make sure that, okay, this person understands what I'm saying and they have time for me. You know, you don't want to try to force an attorney to represent you or be mad at them because they have another more pressing case going on. And I think that that's so important that it leads to this question. All of these clinics. So when you say that you all are at Mount Pleasant, Famicos, Fulton, all of these libraries, talk about what you all are there doing that people can come in, that this is on the Legal Works NEO.org website, and they can see the schedule, and they can come in and get talk about how that works.
Yeah, so if you walk in, you can walk in, I don't know if it's doing it right now. Oh yeah, you can walk in right now. You'll see one of, I was like Glenn, but James maybe at Fulton now. Women's Recovery Center now. But you'll see one of us, and you just sit down and ask us a question. It doesn't matter. Sometimes I get civil questions, and I'll say, hey, I don't do civil work, but I will listen to give you the best advice I can, or refer you the best way I can. Because again, the listening part, sometimes you just need a direction on where to go.
Right.
And sometimes there are some places where you think, okay, I don't have $5,000 to just try to figure it out. I just need help in just getting in the right direction. And it may cost you that much going somewhere else. I can't control fees, especially some matters, they just cost that much because of the work. Some of these fees that attorneys charge is the fee because of the work that's involved. I'm not sure. But again, anyone come in, any question, legal, we'll try to answer it the best we can, even if it's not our expertise, because like you said, if we can't decide to provide the best service, we'll definitely try to guide you to where you could possibly get the best service.
And that leads to talking about these different partnerships that you all have. And the courts are a big part of this, right? Because when they have someone before them that doesn't have representation or whatever the case may be, they identify different organizations, different attorneys that they recommend that the individual go to get assistance. Talk about how Legal Works has developed this network of partners that you all work with to help, be able to provide the service through completion for a client.
Yeah, it's probably better for James there.
Okay.
But the partnership we have with the courts of Cleveland, Mr. Turner, he through his inner neighborhood clinics has really helped us reach different individuals in terms of getting sealed. So that was one of the things that obviously that helped us reach. We had one clinic, we had a one-day seal clinic back in December. There was over 300 people there, more. This last one we had about 100 plus. We only were able to seal about 100 people, but there was obviously overflow in all these clinics, and we're gonna have another one come July 27th, the one day. But we're again in the neighborhood clinic. So that was that partnership I could speak on. That's how we just kind of reach everyone through these clinics. A lot of our client load, maybe it's half because we do see a lot of people in other different locations as well. I know we also partner with Passages, as I mentioned earlier. We usually do like once a month, we do like a Zoom where we help their clients with any issues they have, especially child support. That's like one of the biggest ones for them. We also partner we did a clinic with Nora, which is, I believe, is the Northeast Ohio Recovery Agency. Sorry if I got the acronym wrong. We also see their clientele, Mr. I believe Larry most is the clinic, and it helps provide us, and then we'll reach out that way. So a lot of the partnerships are just getting clinics, getting as many people in the door, because sometimes you may not have time on a Monday to go.
Right.
But you know,
right.
if you hear, you know what, I got time this Thursday, I'm not doing anything, and they're there from this on, I'll just pop in, and I'll just wait, it's fine.
Right.
So that's sometimes not fruitful.
Again, you listen to the BlackAnthology radio show, and today our guest is Isaiah Pinckney, Associate Attorney with Legal Works, which is a nonprofit organization in Northeast Ohio that provides assistance to individuals seeking to have their criminal record expunged and or sealed. They provide assistance with applications for pardon from the governor's office, and they provide minimal services with will preparation. Um, when Legal Works has various clinics throughout Cleveland, across Northeast Ohio, where individuals can just come in, pose their question, their inquiry, their concern. It can be for yourself, it could be for a family member, a friend, a colleague, someone that you know. And the importance of Legal Works is, especially these clinics, is go there, see what they have to say, so at least you can get on the right path to getting the assistance, the legal assistance that you are seeking, that you believe you or someone that you know needs. Capital I. And so, again, you all provide these services how many days a week? And generally, about how long are you all at these locations?
So Monday through Thursday and Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Basically from 12 to 4. The different libraries we are in, it's usually 12 to 3:30, and the other locations are 1 to 4. I can go over again.
Yep.
So today we're at Women's Recovery Center between 62nd and 63rd, and also West 62nd, West 63rd, excuse me. We're also at the Glenville Library today. That's 120th and St. Clair. We're on Tuesdays. We're at University Settlement, which is in Slavic Village off of Meade Avenue. Off of Broadway in Meade. We're also at the Fulton Library from 12 to 3:30. University Settlement is 1 to 4, excuse me. Wednesday is Mount Pleasant. We're there from 12 to 3:30. Thursday, we're at Famicos from 1 to 4, which is 1325 Ansel Road. And on Saturdays, we're there as well from 10 to 1.
Okay. And one other thing I'd like for you to repeat is when an individual gets that expungement record, that proof that it's been expunged, the importance of holding on to that, because you'll need that. And another important part of it is when your record has been expunged, is it okay for me, if I'm in an interview or whatever situation, if the police officer stops me and asks me, have I been convicted of a crime or whatever the case, again, is it okay for me to say no?
By statute, you're able to say no.
Okay.
So you're able to say I don't have a record.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, look, we provided some good information today, I think, on a lot of legal issues that people encounter every day. These are the reasons why people should be voting, is to organizations like Legal Works gets assistance. It's a nonprofit organization. They need assistance, to hire more attorneys, funding, and so forth. There are so many different organizations that are trying to do the same thing that Legal Works is doing, but the general public, we have to do our part in providing direct monetary support to organizations such as Legal Works by providing volunteering with Legal Works in whatever capacity they may need assistance with. And we need to make sure we put the right people in office to make sure that Legal Works gets the recognition and financial support and other resources that it needs to be able to help the community. So again, thank you so much, Isaiah, for coming out and being on the BlackAnthology radio show. We greatly appreciate it. And again, if you want more information about Legal Works, You can go to legalworksneo.org. That's legalworksneo.org. And they have their list of clinics there. They have the list of services that they provide. And they have the different attorneys there listed. You can see what they do, and you can reach out to them and see
the
about.
Website as well. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
You can also reach out through the website. We monitor the website every day.
And you have your email. What's the email?
My email is Isaiah, ISAIAH. Oh, wait. Want the legal email or my email?
Either.
Okay, well, put it ISAIAH at legalworksneo.org. That's my email.
All right. All right. Well, that's going to be it for today. We thank our guest again, Isaiah. Thank you so much, Mr. James Levine, for being on the Black Anthropy Radio Show and talking about the great work that Legal Works is doing to impact the lives of individuals, families, and the community by providing knowledge, resources, opportunities, and inspiration for people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I try to, that's a big thing that, I try to work on is making sure that I let you be there. That's a big thing. And then this one went good because this is probably one of the first times I had minimal. But I listened to what you said, and I want to build those questions off of that.
We'd like to thank you for tuning in to BlackAnthropy here on the station where we don't bring no static, but we sure enough bring the noise on staticradio.net. Make sure you guys check us out on social media where we absolutely love to hear from you on Facebook.com/No Static Radio LLC, on Twitter at No Static _radio, on Instagram at The Real _No Static Radio, and on YouTube at No Static Radio, and our newest platform, Discover.tv. Also, if you guys would like to listen to replays of this show and others, please make sure you check us out on Mixler or Mixcloud.com. Just type in No Static Radio, all one word, in the toolbar for replays of this show and others. And for continuous streaming, that means uninterrupted, no refreshing the page. Just you sit back, relax, let it buffer, maybe a couple of commercials, and you got us on TuneIn.com, LiveOnlineRadio.net, or MediaQ for continuous streaming of this show and all others on this platform. And for all things No Static Radio, including up and coming events, merchandise, and an in-depth look at all our great show hosts here, please check out our website at www.nostaticradio.net, soon to be under construction. But for now, you can check out all things No Static Radio. And we'd like to thank you for tuning in. And you know what it is. At 2 p.m. today, we have The Hustle and Wax Flow, followed by Drag Race and the Ultimate Sport with the Vice President and President of Kuja, Ken, and Denise, followed by More Than Meets the Eye with Noble Convey, Low, and EJ from Cleveland. In the meantime, in the between time, you know what it is. We've got more music for your listening pleasure here on Your Voice of the Revolution, NoStaticRadio.net, powered by Google, partner with Colors, and sponsored by Lamont Avenue Wines, the Cleveland Rugby League, and Design Me exclusively. You guys be safe, have a good one, and stay warm. It's kind of cool out there. Peace.